making time, making memories. There's nowhere that I'd rather be than in the middle of nowhere.
So it looks like it's gonna rain, and it's supposed to, or maybe we already got the rain we're supposed to get today.
It's the last few days have been scattered thunderstorms, and they tend to pass very quickly.
Yep, but then tomorrow it's supposed to be in the mid to high 70s, and again on Sunday it's gonna be nice. Yeah. When we were making these reservations, they didn't have a ton of spots left open. So,
That's right.
you know, they could be at 100% capacity, but maybe some people won't even come to those because they're staying home. It's bad at this.
You can't
So
Google search to save your life.
It's so bad.
If someone ever puts a gun to your head and they're like, quick, what's the capital of New Zealand? You have 10 seconds to Google it, you're gonna die.
Shut up.
Because you'll be like, New Zealand, I think it's a country and it's not Australia, but Google, there's a capital with it, and then he'll shoot you. I feel like we're heading into a really bad weather situation right now.
Well, just because you can't see the mountains and they're gigantic doesn't mean anything.
I figured the Rocky Mountains would be a lot rockier than this. It makes so heavy can
We have like 25 people subscribed now. We are.
I'd hate
we
to
are
disappoint
hits.
those 25 people.
I mean, we are.
I think one of our videos has been watched upwards of 50 times.
Yeah, and it's the super
And we're not even in it.
technical one, right? That's why it's so popular. That red car seems to be in a big hurry. They really dislike people who think they're more important than everyone else.
The 1997 Honda Del Sol.
I thought it was maybe a Miata or something.
It's very similar.
I just
Dollars to donuts. If it's a man driving it, he's wearing fingerless driving gloves.
probably. I just don't understand why he's riding that other car's butt. It feels like he needs to go super fast.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he wants to feel the wind in his, probably on his Bald Scout, I'm guessing. While he drives his Honda Del Sol.
We can't use any of this footage now because you just insulted so many people.
How many people do you think in this world still drive a Honda Del Sol from 1997?
Someone.
Probably 6.
Well, all right, it's May 15th, 2020. We're at Boyd Lake State Park, and we just wanted to give a quick inside tour of our cruiser RV. It's an MPG 2800 QB.
Quad.
Yep. And we've got some questions about what the inside of our rig looks like. So here is the kitchen. Pretty standard. Couple drawers, underneath storage. Just normal stuff. A couple of things that we looked for when we were buying this was a king size bed, which we have. And we've given up a lot of leg room in here, but it is a nice big king size bed. Right now our 2-year-old sleeps with us, and those two sleep with us. So we needed a place where we were able to comfortably fit. Couple little things we've added is our coat rack here for all of our coats, obviously. Dog leashes, command strips for the wind, and a couple little decoration pieces here and there, you know, just to make it feel a little bit more homey. There's the girls. Charlie really wanted yogurt. She's insisting it. Purple-headed teenager. You'll see right here we've got a nice pantry area. I don't really use it for food though. Right now I have everything else stored in it. This is what sold us on the whole RV, is this quad bunk room back here for the girls. So there's 4 bunks. This bottom one right here can be turned into a dinette, which is super nice. The 13-year-old likes to FaceTime at night after we've gone to bed. So that gives her some private room, and eventually we pray Charlotte will take a nap in there. Come on, boys. Come on. Come on, Noah. In getting the quad bunk, we did sacrifice some bathroom space, but it's a pretty standard bathroom. Oh, there I am. Sorry about that. Nice little tub, which is great because Charlotte's still little and I need to wash all the sunscreen and dirt off of her. So that's our RV. Here's our little family. Super happy that we got the slide out. Joe at Camping World in Longmont told us that we would regret not having a slide out on our first rainy day because we'd be on top of each other. And it just finished raining and we're not on top of each other. So we're pretty happy we got it. Kodiak, say bye. Bye-bye.
So after one night, all I can say is I feel like this is somewhere between what I consider a normal state park and like the privately owned ones where you're stacked in real tight to each other, you know, real close to each other.
Okay.
Because the sites are a little bit close and not like a ton of, you know, privacy or trees or anything between them. I'm not complaining. Most state parks are a little more spread out. So as we leave on a Sunday morning about an hour and a half before mandatory checkout, the line for the dump station is about 12 trailers deep, which is why we are extremely glad to store our RV at a location that has a dump site and have 4 or 5 other options within a few miles of our house. We highly recommend, even if it's one you have to pay $5 or $10 to use, having a backup, because even though your reservations at most parks will include dumping on your way out, you may not want to spend the 2 hours in line and have an audience while you're dumping. That's the other beautiful part of that is...
Right, or get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah. You never quite forget everything there is to know about dumping a trailer until you're doing it in front of a line of 12 other RVers.
It's like when we backed in on Friday, and it took us 4 attempts to get into our spot the way we wanted because every single person in the park was looking at us.
Yep, and after 4 attempts at putting the trailer in the exact right spot, we remembered we hadn't filled our freshwater tank.
Right, so then we got to circle around again.
It was kind of like a loser parade of 1 for the entire loop.
Yeah. It went on for a good 35 minutes. Well, but that wasn't completely our fault. We have to get a new filter. The water pressure at Boyd is awesome coming out of their faucet. So awesome that it blew the rubber ring for our filter into the filter. And so the water was coming out super slow, filling our freshwater tank. And we just thought, wow, they have awful water pressure. And so we were just going to bypass the filter. And as soon as we took it off, it was blowing out like a fire hydrant. So that's something to keep in mind also. And it could have just been our filter, I guess, maybe. But I feel like that water pressure was
yeah, I've never had a problem with that filter. And the water pressure here was insane. So if you want to use a filter to fill your freshwater, which I recommend, and you're coming to Boyd Lake, and I don't know if all their spigots are like this. I certainly know Campground Loop B is, you may want to fill your freshwater tank outside the park, because it seemed to have virtually destroyed our filter. Water couldn't even get through it.
And the people who had a pop-up next to us were using it, and it was like blowing their pans out of their hands, and it was pretty intense water pressure.
Yeah.
Remember, I tried to wash out the sippy cup with it, and
yes, blew the sippy cup right into the dirt.
Yep.
Awesome state park if you're into boating.
Yes.
They actually separate the area of the lake where you can do water skiing and separate it from the boats that do fishing. And I think jet skis are allowed on the water skiing side. So if you're into fishing out of a boat or you're into the water sports, they've got it all. They've got a really nice boat launch and marina, and it's a pretty big lake. I like the campgrounds, but they are a little close together for me personally.
Yeah.
At least in our, we drove every loop. And
yeah, we'll show a time lapse at the end of the whole park so that you can see it.
Yeah, if you're interested in kind of getting an idea for the layout of the park or the campsites in particular, at the end of this we'll have a couple minutes of a drive through the park to give you an idea.
Yeah, we might put it in this one or we might link it to a separate one. We haven't decided yet, but we'll have it up.
But yeah, overall nice park, very clean. The lake is beautiful.
Really pretty.
I hear there's really good fishing. I didn't get much of a chance at all to fish. We had some pretty poor weather the first night we were there.
Yeah.
But I hear it's pretty good for walleye, and trout has turned on recently as it does in the early summer. So again, I think I'd really enjoy that lake if we were into boating or we had a more time to fish. But the campsite overall was nice and clean, very friendly people.
Fairly
and you get
level.
Really level,
Yeah.
pretty good. And you definitely get to know everybody in the park because they're very close to you.
They're not that close. You're being dramatic. They're not that close, but they're not. I mean, like even St. Vrain, the spaces were a little bit further apart. Or when we went up to Beaver Meadows, I mean, that other spot directly to the right of us was closer. You just couldn't tell because there were more trees. So, I mean, they weren't completely stacked one on top of each other, but it's not like camping out in nature by any means. You do have the ability to talk to your neighbor, for sure.
I suppose Friday night it was a good thing we were so close when our campsite neighbor chopped the end of his thumb off with an axe while cutting wood.
Yeah.
We were able to get our first aid kit to him very, very quickly and help get the thumb on ice so they could get to a hospital, which was also very close. We just passed it, so...
Yeah, that was intense.
Yeah. If you're accident prone and always want to be close to a hospital while you're camping, this is a great place for you.
Yeah, I was outside. I don't even remember. I think I was just maybe getting something out of the cooler, and I saw the guy chopping wood, and all of a sudden he didn't like scream or anything. It was just like, oh no, and I thought, like, I had a flashback to when our son tried to chop his finger off, and he was walking around holding his finger, and they were just setting up. I mean, they had just pulled in like 15 minutes prior. And I was like, oh my God, did he cut himself? And she was like, yes. And she was literally throwing grapes out of a bag of ice and putting the tip of his thumb into a bag of ice. It was awful. And he had like blood smeared down his face. I felt terrible. But they came back the next day. He was totally bandaged up with his thumb like this, and he was raring to go. Super friendly family.
They stitched it back on, and
yeah,
on Monday they'll find out if the tissue's regenerating or if they take the tip back off.
Yeah, because he did actually end up like cutting just the very, very top part of the bone off. I mean, he really got it. Super sharp axe.
I'd never thought about how much the tip of a thumb can look just like a grape until I saw them both next to each other. It was interesting Friday night.
But that's a really good reminder. We kind of thought we went overkill buying a super heavy-duty first aid kit. Like, you could perform field surgery almost with it. But it's come in handy twice now, both with finger injuries due to an axe. So that's one thing we have to make note of also, is we need to restock all of like the gauze and put more band-aids and stuff in our first aid kit, which is good to have, though. I've never seen you dive into the back of the truck with the tonneau cover on so far back in there and grab something so quickly.
A man of my size doesn't often move that quickly.
But yeah, so it's a good note to always keep some sort of a first aid kit, whether it just be for little kids falling down or if your neighbor cuts his thumb off. Both come in handy. But I think the park overall was really nice. We did get to interact with the rangers. That was Saturday morning, I believe.
No, it was also Friday night.
Friday night.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
okay.
It was before he cut his thumb off because they were setting up. And in some of our drone footage, I think you can see them pulling and setting up.
Okay.
Drones are not allowed at this state park because we're close to the Loveland airport. technically drones are not allowed in any state park, but the rangers seem to be more focused on the fact that we were in the airspace, and I'll still play dumb at our next state park when I get caught flying the drone to get footage.
Yeah, so Corbett's out.
And hope that the rangers don't. I mean, we probably don't want to tag Colorado Parks and Wildlife in our video.
So it's got this big controller that has the iPad on it, and it's sitting on the table. And the rangers walk up super nice. They're wearing their masks and everything, you know, going with protocol. And they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Yada, yada. And they're like, do you know who that drone pointing right above our head might belong to?
It's literally circling our campsite. And they say, do you have any idea who that belongs to? And for about a split second, I really wanted to play dumb and be like, no, I don't know. It's pretty annoying, right? It's loud. But I did have an iPad and controller sitting about 4 inches from my grill, so I figured I should probably admit that it was mine. They were very nice about it.
They were just like, oh, well, we're in Loveland Airport airspace, so we can't fly that. And we're like, okay, no problem. You won't see it again. Brought it down, and that was the last we heard of
You
them.
didn't see it again.
Lots of camp spaces. I think there's over 120.
Yeah, definitely lots of places to camp. I did like, since it sounds like I'm being so negative, on the south side of Loop B, in between B and C, is a large, well-kept grassy field. So if we wanted to come here with a group and get a bunch of sites together, there's a nice place for kids to play, for dogs to run and be taken on walks, and just a nice place to, you know, stretch out, and you can have a lot of people there. So if you've got a lot of campsites together, that would be great, considering all the kids we have in the family that we camp. All the sites, I believe every site is pull-through. It was kind of a unique setup that we hadn't seen before. Every loop you come down what I'd call Main Street, down the center, and the campsites are obviously off to the left and right, but you can pull through each one, unhook, and there's a secondary lane that loops back. So we saw some really large rigs getting into campsites that looked fairly small, but because it is a pull-through like that, they were all able to get in there no problem. And I know there's a lot of campsites, so you're gonna see this in a place that has so many, but I don't know if I've ever seen such a wide range of sizes of rig, from some tent campers to some huge diesel pushers and huge fifth wheels.
Yeah, lots of slides, the fold-out porches that are awesome.
Yeah, a lot of toy haulers.
Vintage campers, slide-ins, everything.
This would be the north side of the park in this first time lapse, covering kind of all the public areas, the marina, the swim beach, and the day use areas. After this, we will do a time lapse also of the campground loops. And here's the south side of the park, basically all the campground loops, dump station, and a few of the playgrounds and a few more public spaces.
Making time, making memories. There's nowhere